Gabby. I'm Gabby, right?
Yeah, I was.
You asked good questions.
Yeah, you asked good questions, but I was all set to ask a question, Keith, since you weren't here.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, we don't have John. We don't have John yet, do we?
I am
You can
here.
ask the question.
Yeah,
You can ask your question, Beth.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Well, as long as you planned it, why don't you ask it?
Well, I am going to ask it. Well, yeah. I am. So, John, I guess you've known me as Elizabeth. Most people call me Beth. Okay.
Is John here yet?
I'm here, yeah. You all can't see me?
Oh, there
you are.
Okay, now I see you. I hadn't seen you before.
Okay. Okay, this is Beth.
Hello, Beth.
So, yeah, hi. So I was reading the other day in Selfless Self, came across something. I'd like to read it and get your comments. Okay, he says here, so there should not be so much attachment to this material life, which may drive or propel another dream. This will be your last dream. There should not be another dream. Know yourself. This body has given you a real opportunity to know yourself in a real sense. If you lose this opportunity, well, we can't say, do you want to see another dream and another dream? If not, come out of it all. Come out from all these dreams. For this, conviction of reality is most important. So I wanted your comment on that. I hadn't read before where he talks about the possibility of dreams and more dreams and more dreams.
From the body-based perspective, if you believe yourself to be a body, then this body concept of dreams and creating more dreams, reincarnation and all that will be impressed, but you are not body. What he's basically saying in this is that if you have the concept of being a body, then you have these conceptual things that came along with the body of, oh, another dream. He's said previously in this book and also in Ultimate Truth, there's no dream. It's body-based concept. So to know yourself in a real sense, you'll know this. It'll unravel these concepts of, is there a past life and future life and what happens after this body is finished and where do I go and what happens if I don't realize myself and all these sort of things. These are all body-based concepts. They came along with the body, which you are not. Once you know yourself in a real sense, these concepts unravel. They have no place to stand because there's no body. So as long as you believe yourself to be something, someone separate from the reality, then concepts can impress. But if you know yourself in a real sense, there's no place for a sticky concept to stick. We've talked about like hanging your hat on the wall, but there's no hook. It's the same, a sticky concept, but you're not body. So to whom does this concept apply? If you know yourself as only can be compared to sky or space, how is this having another dream? And what does that mean? That meaning is unknown until you get into the body-based existence of illusory concepts of saying, okay, what happens when I leave this body? Well, nothing. Because nothing is happening now. And you're not leaving this body. There's no place for you to go. Maharaj has said before, reality is inside of you, outside of you, in front of you, in back of you. Reality is. It's these objects and appearances within the reality that are untrue. And that's why when you know yourself in a real sense, this concept of dreaming, this concept of enlightenment, all these concepts, they just dissolve immediately. because there's no one to whom these concepts can be sticking. Like, who's to be enlightened? This is why Maharaj says China sky is different from American sky, is different from England sky, is different from India sky. No, these are body-based concepts, names. We've given the names, and the names came along with the body. Of course, you need words to be able to communicate, but the ultimate communication is accept your selfless self. There is no God, no Brahman, no Paramatman, no master. Nothing is there. All of these concepts came along with the body, which you are not. All of the relations came along with the body, which you are not. All of the knowledge came along with the body, which you are not. Without body, where's the next dream?
Well, yes, knowing yourself in the real sense, there are no more dreams.
Well, there's no more dreams because you know yourself in a real sense, but there's no dream. There's nothing. You are the formless reality, ultimate truth.
Yes.
And when you know yourself in a real sense, then you can be in this form-based existence for as long as this body can sustain that essence, seeing all of the world that is not true, until you're not seeing the world. But the world is not true. There's no gain, no loss. There's no dream. Just like when you wake up from your dream at night, do you know there's going to be another dream? Is there, and where does that other dream come from? And how is it? Like you say, okay, even your little dream body, you might be dreaming you're someone here, and then in the next dream, the next night, or even in the morning, you're totally different. All the scene is instantly changed. And you are formless without the concept of formless. There's no interaction with form at all. There's just appearances within the formlessness that you are. And a temporary identification for a time as an object within your own self, believing yourself to be separate.
I guess I just hadn't read it where he said, if you don't know yourself as who you truly are, you'll be continuing to believe the illusion and have more dreams.
And you will continue to believe the illusion. I mean, if you don't know yourself in a real sense, then the illusory existence doesn't appear as illusion. It appears to be a world. It appears to be something that's like, I don't know, like a hard substance, that there's like a timeline, and there's cause and effect, and there's all these different things. If you believe in the illusory world,
Yes,
that it's real, then that's the dream. But if you know yourself in a real sense, it's finished.
yes.
There's no, and yet you're still here. Okay, you use the body until you don't use the body. This specific body, but presence, the space, is not going anywhere. Forms are continuously created and destroyed within your own self. And there's different various identifications with the form to say, from the perspective of this form, I'm seeing a world. But that's not true. Just as in your dream, you can't see inside your dream without having a little dream body in your dream world. And you see, this is my dream.
So you see, you're not seeing a dream or a world, you're seeing yourself.
You're seeing a projection. Based on the concept of being something within that projection, you see a world, and it starts to make sense from that limited perspective. And you start to kind of say, this is me and this is a house. This is me and this is a car. This is me and this is something. But when you know yourself in a real sense, there's not that. You're not an object, so you're not seeing other objects. You're seeing scenes. And they appear and disappear and appear and disappear. And there's no timeline. You're not thinking about your lifeline. You could still celebrate birthdays just like Maharaj did. Maharaj celebrated, oh, it's 72, now I'm 70 or whatever, you know, having the birthday. Okay, you're celebrating. But it's not a ticking clock till the end, because there's no end and no beginning. So you're not sitting there and saying, oh, I'm getting older and I'm going to die, because there's no you that's getting older. The you that you are isn't aging. The body that's available to you in this specific instance is aging, because that's what the 5 elements do. That's why we talk about if you leave an orange out on the counter, it ages and deteriorates. This body is a 5 elemental body made of basically the same things as this orange, and it's going to deteriorate. But you're not deteriorating. You could say you're the life force that provides everything. And that's why Maharaj says you're not something, you're everything. And everything is nothing, because there's no relation. There's no like, you can't be in it, because you are that. You can only appear to be within this bubble of illusion. And whilst you're holding this body, you will be with all thoughts, all concepts, all experiences are within the bubble of illusion. Just as when you're dreaming, everything you're doing and everything you're experiencing is within the dream. And when you wake up, it's finished. And I think the thing of making someone say, like, you don't know if there's going to be another dream, this is to get the earnestness. Because so many people, they think this spirituality, and Maharaj says all the time, they come, they get mantra, it's like, oh, yes, 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 thank you, very nice. And it's just like a spiritual tourist. This is the most important thing you can do for yourself, is to directly experience your own self and know yourself in a real sense. Because then it's, there's no way the illusion can be impressed. And you'll never forget your own self, because you are. Like, that was another question Maharaj had gotten about what happens when you're senile on your deathbed. Well, when you know yourself in a real sense, this is, all these things are just layers, are just appearances on that. There's no getting involved or getting wrapped up in the concept of the belief of anything. And whether mind is there or not, it doesn't matter. You are. You know, the doctor says you're on your deathbed, but you're remaining, you know yourself in the real sense, you're remaining with yourself. You could even say, okay, I'm just remaining with the I am, the sense of existence, the sense of presence. Doctor says I have 3 months to live. Okay. And I really stay with myself. And there's no thoughts about having 3 months to live or whether I'm going to, nothing like this. Because there's no place for these concepts to stick. there's not even a you that says, oh, but I'm formless or this. No, when you remain with your selfless self, it's the black hole that sucks in all concepts.
Mhm.
And there's no place for a concept to stick. There's no ground for illusion to build when you know yourself in a real sense and you're remaining formlessly just as you are without adding concepts.
It seems like maybe the closer I get to knowing myself in a real sense, that something like seems to be deepening and like almost like taking me over, and it feels like really good, amazingly good, and I got that's got to still be connected with the body, but the somehow it's not me. I realize that's when it's not really me anymore. It's like, well, it is me, but it's not it's not the me that I thought that I used to think in terms of thinking that I am, or hard to say that. But anyway, I asked you in the past. I read in Das Bod, he talked about the form of the self, and I couldn't understand that. There like some things in this teaching seem contradictory to the mind, but once you see the reality of what they're saying, then it's the contradiction drops away, and you just see what the truth of what they're saying. But the teaching is usually that we are formless, and then I read that there's a form of the self, and so since I still
Form of
don't.
the self is formless. And that's kind of relating it to, from the body-mind perspective, what you just described is in the summertime, I'm wearing layers and layers and layers of clothing, all the way to like fur coats. I have 4 fur coats on top of all my clothing, and it's summertime. And I start to remove these coats one at a time, and I start to feel some relief, right? Because I've been sitting here in this fur coat. So I take this fur coat off and that fur coat, and then I take the sweater off, and then I take the shirt off, and I'm feeling more and more and more relief as these layers are being removed. But the reality is always the reality. All these are just layers, and they're being discarded. And the more you discard the illusory layers, of course, the more free you feel. You're not limited by this body form. And even if that comes and goes in the beginning of, oh, I'm still a body, but sometimes I experience myself not as a body. Well, I know myself in a real sense. I'm not body. What's the form of the self without attributes? without any attributes whatsoever. So we
That's
say formless.
why you can't put it to words, I guess.
Well, because, see, think about space. If in the relation to the objects within the space, how would you describe the space? And anything that you can describe about the space is still within the space. So words are useless. Truly, words came along with the body. We use words, but only these words are to point to one thing. Accept your selfless self. There's no God, no Brahman, no Paramatman, no master. Nothing is there. You are not body. You were not body. You're not going to remain the body. Body is not your identity. If at all you want to compare yourself to sky or space. Invisible, anonymous, unidentified identity, which is without attributes. Invisible, there's no attributes to invisible. Unidentified, there's no attribute to unidentified. Identity, unidentified identity, which is nothing. These are all words that came along with the body. When you know yourself in a real sense, the words can be discarded. Just like you will get the relief if you had all those clothes on and you walked outside in the 90 degrees and you started taking them all off, you start to experience relief. As the illusory layers are removed, you start to experience relief. And the deeper and deeper and deeper you remain with your own selfless self, eventually you want nothing more than this. Like there's nothing, that's that selfless self-intoxication, that what is better than reality? Nothing, you know?
Mhm.
The whole pain and pleasure principle is dissolved because you're formless. The flow of thoughts that you used to call mind is now labeled as the world and has nothing to do with you. It carries on quite nicely, and
But like last week, this has to be something to do with has to have something to do with non-duality. But you were you said something about the T, and almost make it sound like the T exists. I know
within the bubble of illusion, this tea exists and is very delicious. And using this body object, I can taste this tea. If you, as you are, without having the concept of existing, you would not be able to taste this tea.
So basically, it's like the T exists as much as I do in the illusion.
Yeah, you can have tea in your dream.
Yeah, it's not like I exist any more or the T exists any less.
Well, they're both illusory. The you that is appearing that can drink tea is illusory. The formless you can't drink tea without being within the bubble of illusion, using a body form to drink tea and say, oh, this tea is very delicious.
Because the tea that, or the me and the tea that appear to be are actually, they're like, it almost seems like they being born and dying at the very same moment. But that's part of the illusion that can even be true.
No, because everything's appearing on your spontaneous presence. This worldly appearance is appearing on your spontaneous presence. So it's not individual. It's not like when Keith dies, all of this ends. Because Keith is an object within consciousness, and consciousness is continuum. Things are being created and destroyed, created and destroyed, created and destroyed. Within that, Keith is an object. John is an object. I use this as myself so you don't feel like, oh, Keith doesn't matter at all. No. I say John. So John is an object within your own self. When John, the object, can no longer function, it doesn't mean that the world has ended completely and woof, we're gone. This telescope is no longer available to see inside the illusion. Okay.
So somehow it's like the background of physical reality is also the background of mental reality.
There's no physical reality. It's just like a dream.
Well, I was thinking in terms of like a universe is made out of, well, I mean, the universe
But
is
the
made out of
universe
space.
is not, see, that's the thing. This is how the universe is made. Suddenly, there's a feeling of existence. And that creates this bubble of illusion. Within the bubble of illusion, you experience this sense of existence as I exist. And now I'm here and I'm seeing. And from the perspective, the wrong perspective, as Maharaj says, the wrong files, I am somebody, I start to have experiences because I believe myself to be a body, and these are stored within memory as I experienced. And then the pain and pleasure principle comes in because these are experiences I want to experience more of. These are experiences I want to experience less of. Because of the perspective of believing I'm something, but you're nothing.
It reminds me though of the very first creation of life was like a cell dividing, a one thing dividing into two.
Again, remember, within the bubble of illusion, we can explain 100 million different ways of creation. Bible does it very nicely. Gita does it very nicely. Das Bod goes into chapter after chapter after chapter about how the wind was moved and then became fire, and fire did this and became water, and then these elements came. But this is all illusion. When you know yourself in a real sense, this body knowledge can be dissolved. Simple. Because it's not true. Why? And that's why Maharaj says, and this is also a little bit misconstrued when he says, it's not up for debate. It doesn't mean like he's dictating to you, you must believe this. It's not up for debate because as you know yourself in a real sense, debating about the illusion just doesn't make sense. We can go on for hours and hours and hours and hours debating about illusion. What's true, what's false? Well, within the bubble of illusion, there's nothing true, nothing false because it's illusion.
Mhm.
So don't spend your time with these things. Spend your time with yourself. Spend time with you. When you know yourself directly in a real sense, then this won't matter. Somebody might come and say, you know what, Keith? Your whole philosophy is completely wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, the more you see it, the more you do want to stay there too. With
Of
yourself.
course. What could you want more than your own self? See, all of this, like going and delving into how this is created and how that's created and where's the karma and the kundalini and the chakras and all this kind of stuff is just detracting you from your own self. Like a little kid who sits at Christmas time and just watches the lights. Because, oh, look at the lights. They're so beautiful. And that's the world. Oh, look at this and look at that. Let's explain this. And then you give it to mind. You provide power to the mind to confuse you and keep you away from knowing yourself directly in a real sense. And then you go and ask other people, because you believe in other people, how to know your own self. And many in the spiritual community will say, well, you know, they use the example of getting in the taxi cab and going all the way around Bombay to come back to the ashram. And it was like 12-hour drive, but you were at the ashram, you left, and you came back, but you had a nice spiritual journey. Yes? You can definitely talk about it. Oh my God, the sights I saw. Oh, it was so amazing. The things I learned, the experiences I had. Know yourself in a real sense. Remain with your selfless self. In meditation, just sit. What's here? And just remain. Don't try to figure it out, because the truth is, that's a rabbit hole that you can't escape.
It is, it's rather entertaining.
Well, if you want to be entertained, of course. I mean, while you have this body form, you're going to be entertained. This whole entire world is there for the existence to entertain, while existence is knowing existence. So that's fine, but you just don't take it as reality.
Yeah, that's as long as I see on this Aggadata talks about affection, and if my affection goes towards the entertainment rather than my remaining where it's home, then it can appear that
Just like Siddharmeshwar Maharaj told Nisargadatta Maharaj, stop these poems. You're enjoying the poems too much, meaning you're getting lost in the illusion. Because he was writing these poems and really enjoying, and he was saying, these poems, they're just flowing out of me. And Siddharmeshwar Maharaj says, please stop this. And he did, of course. Nisargadatta was like, okay, stop. Why? Because you're starting to get lost in the illusion. You're enjoying the illusion too much.
Mm.
The illusion is worn like a loose garment. You can fully experience it in the moment, but just like channel surfing, you know, you turn to a channel and you watch 5 minutes of this amazing show. You're really totally involved, but then you're willing to just change that channel to a totally different show and get totally involved in that. Okay, now we change this channel because nothing's serious. You don't sit there and say, I wonder what happened on that show that I didn't get to see.
That reminds me a lot of something I was just reading the last couple of days. I Googled something to do with Nisargadatta and affection for the self or something, and I came up with this statement at one site. Let's see if I can actually bring it up right now. It's at this website called mpeters.de, and he says something to do with once you have gone through an experience, not to go through it again is austerity, and to eschew the unnecessary is austerity, and do not anticipate pleasure and pain is austerity. Having things under control at all times is austerity. And you know, I've always you know, or most humans run around with this idea that we can control things, but really the only way to control things is to be free of them, I guess.
Well, at the very base level, you can say acceptance. You accept everything spontaneously as it's occurring in the moment. You don't have any desires other than what is, and therefore you can say that you are I don't even know, it would look like things are happening as you're wanting them to happen, only because there's no you there. See, if there's a you there, then there's always going to be a conflict of, I don't like the way things are going, because there's a you that's involved in whatever's occurring. If you're formlessly just with your own self, and this is why, again, when we're talking about affection and love, Maharaj says you love yourself more than anything. And this is not meant to be like some narcissist looking at himself in the mirror 100,000 ways. This is because you know yourself in a real sense. This selfless self-intoxication, there's nothing other than this.
Selfless is
And Therefore, there's no need to pay attention to anything other than your own self. And then things arise spontaneously and in the moment, okay. And in the moment, just like we enjoy the tea and we enjoy this and we go to work and we do our job and we do this, but it's all spontaneous. There can never be an acceptance with a you there, because you're creating some block, some object, and things are happening to that object. If you're identified with that body form as your own self, then everything that happens to that body form you believe is happening to you. And even from the perception of, oh, this is so terrible, all these bad things keep happening to me. But if you're formless, then these are arising and falling and scenes appearing and disappearing, scenes appearing and disappearing. There's no sense of a me that everything is happening to. And the deepest reality is nothing's happening. This is a spontaneous existence. And as long as there's someone there that you believe is your own self, that you're experiencing a world, then you have more meditation. Remain with your selfless self. Mantra. Remain with your selfless self.
People say you're not the doer.
Yeah, how can you be? Just as all the people in your dream, are they doers? Even you dream about people going to college and they're studying very hard to get their diplomas. And you wake up. What were they doing? And then again, from the perspective, was it fair that you woke up? And we never got to find out if they graduated from college. What their whole lives were ahead of them. And you woke up. Know yourself in a real sense.
Present tense.
Know yourself in a real sense. Right now, just sit. What's here?
Well, John, it happened to you all at once. Most of us, it's a gradual thing, it seems, to accept a selfless self.
I don't know.
I'm sure it was gradual to some degree for you, right? And in some sense, maybe you don't want to say.
I don't know. The best way is to go on the Ramakant Maharaj Dakshina website and read the little timeline thing, because that was a journal that I took in real time with the experience of experiencing.
Where is this at?
It's the, hold on, it's the website.